Hey y'all, if you're wondering why you can't see me, it's because we're trying to represent the lighting that was in the first 30 minutes of this episode. Hey.
How you doing there, Carson? You can see us now, can't you? You can see us pretty good?
You can see us pretty nice.
See
pretty
Amazon?
Nice.
This is what it looks like when the lights are on. Cheeto. I'd like to welcome everybody to episode 7 review of The Rings of Power on Amazon. That's what we're watching, unfortunately. So this is our review of it. I'm just going to say right off the bat that this episode was trash. I know we've said that about a few of those. Turn it off.
So we begin this episode, and we just want to say right off the bat that quite literally everyone should be dead.
They should be dead. They're not alive.
Volcanic dust clouds. There's a word for that, and I can't remember what it.
Especially Cheeto clouds.
Yeah, Cheeto dust clouds. Clouds big enough that they had lightning coming from them. Volcanic ash would burn you alive. But of course Galadriel is indeed alive. She uses her woman powers to defy the laws of volcanicity. And it's also interesting that this sword that she just has looped over her shoulder has managed to stay on her back this whole time. And
that's where cool people keep their sword.
Yes, and quite frankly, it would just be a lot easier if she wore the sword on her belt on her side, but she's wearing it on her back, and she's not even wearing it in the cool diagonal way that you wear a sword on your back, where you pull it off like this. So we see Galadriel standing beside the ugly child Theo, and it really emphasizes just how miscast this actress is, how short she is, and Galadriel should just be towering over Theo and his terrible bowl cut. She's not a bad looking woman once you get past her punchable face. Isildur lifts up some wood along with his Numenorian buddies, and this wood should be burning their hands. It's not burning their hands, of course, because this fire is, of course, all CGI. So we go back to the satanic hobbits.
We sure do.
Yes, we do. For a long time, they begin making up stories that are never mentioned in Tolkien's works. So made up lore off the bat, and a hobo giant is working on a dead tree. It appears that he's trying to make the tree grow or something or another. And all the hobbits gather around to look at him messing with this tree, and they're standing downhill from a dead tree that is already sort of facing in a downward position. Well, sure enough, this tree snaps and falls down, and the hobbits are surprised that gravity works the way it does. Because when the tree falls towards them, they all go, and then look accusingly at the giant man.
So it's like, I hate that trope. It's been done 1,000 times. Character who has not hurt anyone yet, ever. That nobody knows he's hurt anybody yet. I know he had that little thing where he frosted over that little girl's hand. But no.
He was healing his hand with the frost, and she touched it and was like, "Oh, it's cold."
Yeah, it looks cold, let's touch it. Yeah, it's like putting your hand in the freezer and then shutting the door 48 times and being like, "I'm sure it's cold."
The fridge hurt me.
But yeah, I just hate the trope of like looking at something happened by accident. He did not bust the limb, and then everyone is just like, "Ooh, get out of here!" And then they make him leave. Go ahead.
So we cut back to Elrond and Durin doing dwarf and elf stuff, and we really see that Elrond is just a backhanded, disingenuous sack of crap. And he goes on this spiel 2 episodes ago talking about this whole mithril thing, which is still remains to be horse hockey, as the boomers would call it. With this made-up whole thing to save elven immortality, as though it was ever tied to the Silmarils, which it's not.
So, because in reality, all the elves right now are just wearing wet socks, and then mithril is going to be the warm socks that they
Yes.
put on later that save their life
Yes.
and save their tree.
But Elrond...
If only they had a big giant hobo man to save their tree.
Yes.
If only, right? It's too bad he's probably going to be a bad guy.
Probably.
I'm just guessing.
Or probably not. Maybe.
Well, he does break branches that are downhill.
So Elrond, goes on this whole spiel 2 episodes ago where he's like, oh, I can't believe you want to extort the dwarves. When in reality, in the 2nd episode, when he came to the dwarves, he came to extort the dwarves. It just wasn't for Mithril. It was to build a tower. And then Durin is like, man, you came here asking for something. I thought we were friends. It's been 20 years. And out of guilt, he decides to hang out with the dwarves. But he was there to extort them. And then was very accusatory to Celebrimbor and Gil-galad for wanting to extort them. Durin's daddy, also named Durin, basically forbids the elves from getting Mithril. Which, quite frankly, in the universe that this show is setting up is honestly kind of based. I mean, the elves seem to be high and mighty dickheads, really. So I'm actually on the side of old dwarf Durin. But in terms of what you're morally supposed to go with, you're supposed to morally go with the younger Durin. And, you could see the idea that this older dwarf basically says, like, we can't go down into the mountain too deep because there's, rock slides and all this stuff. You don't know what could be down there. And that sounds remotely sensible at first until what happens later. But before that, we cut back to the ugly child and Galadriel. The ugly child wants to go and kill orcs, even though this whole situation is his fault. So, the ugly child wants to go and kill orcs.
He did find the big evil sword and then not tell anybody for a while.
Yes, Galadriel, who normally this whole show has been ready and willing to go and haphazardly toss herself to the wind and fight stuff, is like, no, we shouldn't go and kill orcs. We find out that Muriel, the black woman playing a non-black character, is in fact now blind because of dust. It's interesting that is the only thing so far that seems to be affected with the ash, but it's character development, we suppose, so we'll give them a slight
There's a point for that.
There's a slight point for that. We cut back to the hobbits. And the hobbits are still afraid of the giant because they're retarded. And we really see Nori and the black woman's, the Michelle Obama hobbit, we really see their horrid stage Irish accents in this scene. It's, or you hear them at least, and let me tell you, they are very potato. Oh, give it back and let me tell it. Oh. Galadriel and Theo have a moment where they talk about their family and everything because Theo doesn't know if his big booty mama is dead. So Galadriel begins speaking about her husband. What's this? A woman having a relationship with a man? Galadriel having a relationship with a man? Well, we find out that her husband is apparently dead. He's not dead in the books. In fact, he never died in the books. But she speaks of him in a certain way that says that he disappeared, so there's a chance he could come back. I, for myself, wonder if they're going to pull some weird romance stuff with Galadriel and Halbrand, or, as I would say,
Voldemort.
So we cut back to the dwarves and find out that despite all these warnings about safety and stuff in the mines, that the dwarves literally had to dig for like half a day.
Yeah, it was just Durin digging, by the way.
Yes, just one dwarf digging. He finds not just a deposit of mithril, but a whole room of mithril.
The mithril.
Yes. The heart of the mountain, as they would say.
Durin Durin Senior, he comes down there and catches them, and he says, "Hey, I told y'all not to." And then they're just like, "Dad, I thought you said tuh." And he's like, "I told you not to, so get ya." Hey, I back up there. And
back up there.
And he also takes Durin's necklace.
Yes, he takes Durin's necklace after he gives him this interesting dwarf speech about his son and everything like that. And it's an interesting speech and everything. But then we get a sperm allegory. We get a
What?
where Durin says that Elrond is more of a brother to him than if he'd been fired in his own mother's womb. So we cut back and we find out that the hobo giant, he isn't Gandalf, he isn't Sauron, he isn't the Balrog, he isn't Tom Bombadillo himself.
Tom Bombadillo?
Tom Bombadillo. He is in fact Johnny Appleseed. We are in America.
He makes an apple tree. Nice, good-looking apples. And then all the Harfoots like him again.
Yes, all the Harfoots like him again.
Once
they can extort him. Yeah, but then the lesbians show up that night. And they burn all the apples that the hobbits get.
Yeah, they burn like everything.
And so...
Some of those Harfoot kids, they died. Because it shows a woman and she's like screaming and crying. And it shows some Harfoot people holding her back from saving her child. They could have lived.
The white armor against the backdrop of this CGI Cheeto dust they have really highlights just how cheap Power Ranger-like the Numenorians look. Bronwyn's alive, much to our dismay, but our beautiful chocolate man doth return to us.
I'm so
Arendir is here. One of the only good characters. We're happy to see him. We're happy he's alright.
Maybe he'll get another fight in the next episode where he wins.
Yes. Elendil is mad that that Isildur is apparently lost. We think Isildur may have got caught up in that burnt house that fell down, but we aren't sure. But indeed, Isildur is lost, and Elendil, despite the fact that he gave his son permission to go on a potentially dangerous mission, is more or less willing to just blame Galadriel for it. Don't get me wrong, Galadriel did rope all these people into it, but I'm going to have to stick up for her this one time. You let your son go. We get back to the hobbits, who say a dumb hobbit line that was entirely made for the trailer. You saw it in all the trailers. He says, "We're going to face whatever this problem is with hearts even bigger than our feet." And then he looks at the camera like he's in an episode of The Office. It's a trailer line, if I've ever heard one.
That line is so not good.
It's not good. Hobbits wouldn't know that they had uncharacteristically big feet. Unless they'd been around other species, which...
They know about big people.
They know about big people.
But somehow those people don't have bigger feet.
The hobbits are going to go after Johnny Appleseed. The fat friend's going, Nori's going with her bad Irish accent, Michelle is going to make sure that they don't have any good food to eat. And we got the whole gaggle of bitches led by Sardok, the only good actor amongst the hobbits.
That fade into Mordor was ridiculous.
Oh, it was so awful.
That's so
looking.
dumb.
It was so like cheesy AMV looking.
Yeah, like I wish like the Harfoots walked up on screen carrying letters on their back and then dropped them and was just like, "Did I do that?" and walked. Real quick, before we give this a Rings of Power out of 10, this episode sucks so bad.
This episode's terrible.
I hated this episode. It was the worst episode they've ever done. Worse than 2, worse than 4. 3 was still pretty good. 5 and 6 are okay. Not amazing, I'll tell you that much. 6 is not even that good either.
3 was okay. 3's still the only one that I was actually entertained by in a non-ironic way.
Right. I will give this a 1 Ring of Power out of 10.
This is a 1 Ring of Power out of 10.
I just have to say 1. I would love to give it less.
If it was 0, it would be because it didn't exist or we didn't watch it. But we have to give it something, and we have to give it a 1.
Not very good. Not very good at all. Thanks, Bezos. The Cheeto dust must have cost $1 billion. You excited for the next one? It's the finale.
It is the finale. We will be bringing this series to an end next time. What will we talk about after this? Will we talk about the destruction of the Nord Stream pipeline?
Maybe. I mean, that's a lot to talk about.
You want to talk about how Joe Biden's going to get us into World War III?
Joe Biden's going to get us into World War III?
You never Trumpers don't want to talk about that, do you?
I mean, all we really need...
I did that. What?
What?
You're looking at me?
I'm Joe Biden's husband.
I'm gay.